Now that the fish are biting, let's start this one off with a fish catch. Just flipped into some heavy cover, drop the bait down, shake it a bit, let them find it, give them a little time. Here it comes. Let's get a good hook set here. Fun's on. This is my kind of party here. Mano a mano. Hey Steve, why don't you let the viewing audience show what's going on here? Okay. There we go. We're flipping in heavy cover today. Better get in there with the trolling motor. Better pull the power pole up. Alright, coming in hot. Is that fish still down there? Keep your eyes open. You may see him splashing around down there a bit. Alright. Grab that line. Oh, hit the trolling motor again. Get in there hot. Oh, there he is. He's still on. Do a little gardening here. Alright, there he is. Got him. Well, not quite yet. A little more gardening. Pull those toolies out of the way, Steve. There we go. Oh, still got a problem. Grab those toolies. Why don't you throw that rod down on the bottom of the boat? It's not that expensive. There you go. We got to get the hero shot here. No, not quite yet. Get that camera ready. Here we go. Check this out. All right. Oh, wrong hand. Switch it around. That's better. Get that bait out of its mouth. All right, let's go for the hero shot. Throw the rod down again. Yes. There it is. How easy was that? Bada boom, bada bing. She goes back in the water. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about a technique that I call power flipping, and it is a technique that I use primarily when I'm fishing toolies. It works great when you are trying to get your bait into a prime target that may have obstructions in front of it. It's not the standard D. Thomas style fishing. There's a little bit of adjustment that we're going to talk about, and it's kind of fine-tuning what D started. But I want to talk about why this technique works so well, especially during the spring and summertime. Number one, let's just face it, toolies provide tons of cover for the fish, and they provide plenty of food, whether it's bluegill, whether it's a small bait fish, or whether it's crayfish. This is a nutrient-rich, a bait-rich area. This is like the zone, back in these toolies. And the thing of it is, I'd say 80 to 90% of all anglers never really touch the surface of what the toolies hold. They fish the outside, but they can't get into the inside of the toolies, the prime targets, when you can kind of look over the top and see a little hole there, or maybe like what we have behind us. There's some down toolies, and you don't know if you can punch in there or pitch or whatever. So we're going to be talking about flipping in there. Think about this. The fish that are in there, and there's some big fish that hold in there, they're very comfortable because they have plenty of cover. They never have to leave. They've got shade. They've got plenty of food. So they get very comfortable in just staying there and waiting for their bait to come to them. A lot of times they're ambush feeders. They stay in a prime area. They're stationary, and when something gets around them, they'll come and hunt it. By and large, they're sitting way back where people don't have a chance to get to them a lot of times. So we're going to be talking about heavy weight and building up a lot of bait speed, meaning when we pitch, these are called bullet weights, and we're going to think of this as a bullet, or think of it as a bowling ball running down the lane, and when it hits the pins are all going to knock aside, and that bowling ball is going to punch right through there. That's what we're trying to do. Now, When you have super heavy cover, it's not going to work every time. It can be frustrating when you start. It's not 100% cast that you're going to get it to your target every time, but it's something as you're going down the bank, you've got to work at it, get your technique down. And once you get good at it, even if you can get 5, 6, 7 cast out of 10 casts back into those prime areas, you're going to start catching some big fish, and believe me, it's toe-to-toe combat. So why is this so effective? Think about this. Those fish are sitting back in the tules and they're listening. When we are using this technique with this heavy weight, and hopefully we're going to use kind of you'll be using a fairly aerodynamic bait. You don't have to use a big bait. Anything you use for punching, we'll go over that in just a minute. But it's an aerodynamic bait, so it's not going to catch the tules. It's not a big 8-inch worm where as soon as it hits the tules, it's going to just stop. What we want to do is build up some bait speed with an underhand presentation. We get that thing moving through there, and it's going to bounce off tules. What that does, as it's hitting maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 tules, it alerts the fish that something's coming. I always remember Bobby Barrett talking about fishing spinner baits. He'd throw that thing over a tule point, and he'd reel it up to the tule point, and he'd say, as soon as that bait hits the tule, man, I'm holding on, because once it pops through that tule, the fish is coming out. Well, what happens is that spinner bait would hit the tule, the fish got alarmed, sees a spinner bait, comes up and bites it. Same thing here. Think about what's back there. Bluegill, small bait fish, and crayfish. They're in there feeding, they're eating bugs. When they get spooked, they go right out to the deeper water. What happens when they sprint out of there? They touch the tules. Tick, 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 tick. I don't care if it's a crayfish or a bluegill. Tick, 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 tick. The big bass, they hear that, they're coming after it. Something's getting away from them. Well, this is going in the other way. Our bait, when we cast it in there, it's ticking tules, finally stops, hopefully in the spot that we want it. And any fish around there, even though we're ticking the tules up top, the vibration is sending down to the roots of those tules, and the fish can hear that. So let's say we poke our bait in a little hole back there. If the fish is there, he or she may just grab it right away. If it's not in that particular hole, maybe it's 3 or 4 feet away, it knows that that bait has come through the tules and there's something there, and if this fish wants to eat, he's going to investigate. He or she is going to investigate. Now, as you start pulling that bait back through the tules, you're also going to be hitting the base of the tules, and that's going to be causing those ticks and vibrations just a little different way. When it's going in, it's vibrating from the top of the tule down to the root. As you're pulling it out, if it doesn't get hung up, you're hitting the base of these, but it's the same principle that's drawing the fish in. So how are we going to achieve this? I would say start off with a heavy, medium heavy rod, or even a light flipping rod, something that has some backbone and you can pull big fish out of heavy cover. A 200 style reel is fine. A lot of times I'll use straight braid. If the water's less than 3 feet of visibility, 55 to 65 pound straight braid. If it gets real clear, you can put on a 4-foot mono leader of 20-pound test line. You're going to set it up just like a T-rig. You'll have a bobber stop, probably a ½ ounce to a quarter, ½ ounce to 3/4 of an ounce bullet weight tungsten, and then the hook is just your standard offset worm hook. The baits can be anything that you want. This is a goat. I've been doing real well on the goat this year. You can flip a horny toad out there. You can throw brush hogs, are unbelievable baits out here. This is the standard brush hog. This is the mid-size brush hog. I like the smaller one because it's less obtrusive when it comes to punching through the vegetation. But you can throw worms. Keep them on the small side. Like I say, if you have super heavy cover, the bigger the bait, the more that it's going to cause you problems of hitting that the tules and just stopping and not getting to its destination. So how are we going to do that without fouling up? getting overruns on your spool. Here's the deal. I've got I have this one adjusted already, but I'm gonna unadjust this. So I'm letting up on the spool adjustment here. Generally, when we have this, when we're normally fishing, and I let my thumb off, it's just gonna drop again. If you have it adjusted like that, you're going to have problems, because when you punch this thing out there and you're building up bait speed, you're trying to knock it through the toolies. As soon as it hits something, the bait's going to stop, the spool's going to keep running, and you're going to have a tangle up. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to take this and get it to where this bait actually just not even, I get it to where it's not hardly moving. Let's try, I'll adjust a little bit. That's too much. That's fine. About like that. You want the spool to be fairly tight. So when I punch this in, I hit the side of the boat that time. It didn't even overrun. But you're going to want to really get down here. You're going to punch it in. It's going to pull through, and it's not going to overrun on your spool. Your bait is going to hit obstructions all the time, but with a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce bullet weight and a lot of bait speed with that underhand cast and really pitching it out there, it's going to go through a lot of those toolies, and it's going to get back into the areas that you need it to get into. Now, you're going to have to identify those areas, and some of them you're just not going to be able to get to, but you'll start to look at the area, the prime area behind the toolies, and you'll get to know, yeah, I can make that cast. Part of it is bait speed and just bowling ball through, and part of it is how accurate you're able to cast. A lot of times you can see little lanes in the toolies that you can poke through, so on and so forth. Once you put this bait out, you may drape it over a toolie, it may be draped over wood, it can be draped over 4 or 5 toolies. Once it gets on the water, you can hand line it down, let it sink, and let it sit there, because like I said, fish will know that that bait's in there. Give them, I'll say, 3 or 4 seconds to move from there, maybe move from where they are to the bait. Twitch it a little bit if you don't get anything in 3 or 4 seconds, and then try to pull that bait back to the boat, because remember, they hear it coming in, and as it's pulling out, if you can tick toolies with it, they're going to hear it coming out, and that could draw a strike. The strikes can be anywhere from a vicious slam to just a tick. A lot of times the fish will pull it up, and you'll be looking at your line, and the line will be moving out, and it's hard to figure that bite out sometimes, because if it's draped over a toolie, as you lift the rod, it's going to want to go down the toolie, so you never know if that's a fish or it's just the weight pulling down. So you always want to keep contact with that, and if that bait looks like it's moving down the toolie and you make contact with it, usually what happens, you'll feel a tick. Man, when you see that bait tick, you're going to take 2 cranks of that reel and just lay into them. You're going to want to have that drag tightened down almost as tight as you can get it, and it's going to be mano a mano. So go out there, give it a try. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching, and I know if you get this technique down, you're going to catch some big fish doing this, and you're going to have a lot of fun and a little frustration, but once you get it down, man, you're gonna be so happy that you got this in your back pocket. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the water. Bye-bye.